In this lecture, we will start our authentication process, and we will start by setting up our application to have authentication. And for that, we will install a few Nuget packages first. To do that, let's come to dependencies, right click on dependencies and go to manage Nuget packages. In the browse section over here, we have to search and install these packages one by one. So let's do the first one, which is Microsoft.ASPNET CORE Authentication.jwt bearer. So copy that, browse it, and install this latest version. So click on the install. So once that is done, we will come to the next one, which is Microsoft.IdentityModel.tokens. So copy that, browse it, and once you're able to see it, so click on that and click on install. After that, we have system.IdentityModel.tokens.jwt. So copy that as well, and we will find that. So search on it, click on it and install that. And after that, the last one will be Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Identity.Entity Framework Core, and paste that in the browse section and click and install this Nuget package as well. So I will send a list of these Nuget packages and I will attach this to the notes attached to this lecture, so you can go on and download the list of these packages, and you can just copy and search for these packages to install it in your API solution. After this, we can close this, and now we want some variables for our JWT settings inside the appsettings.json file. So let's open that, and we will first create an object after the connection strings. And let's call this JWT, and inside this object we will have a few properties. So the first key value pair will be for key, and this will be a secret key, and I have just created a random secret key of characters like small alphabets and uppercase alphabets and numbers as well, and it's a large string. So you can copy that, or you can create your own version of a secure string using these alphabets and numbers, and that will be our first key value pair. Then I will have the issuer as the key, and I need the value for the issuer, which will be the application URL. And to get that, I can just right click on the project, go to properties, and inside the debug menu over here, expand on that, and in general I will open the debug launch profile UI. And in here, if I scroll down, I have the app URLs, which is the HTTPS and the HTTP version. So I will use the HTTPS version, copy the URL from here, and now I can close this and come back to the appsettings.json file and paste the issuer over here. And similarly, I would need an audience. So audience, and the value for the audience will be the same as the issuer for now. So let's keep that the same as the application URL. So make sure you have your application URL and a different secret key for this JWT object. Now it's time to add authentication inside program.cs file. So let's open that, and we will build it inside our services collection. So before this line where we build our builder object, I will put some space, and in here we will add authentication to the services as well. So we will say builder.services.add authentication method, and to this method we will give a scheme. So this is the default scheme, and we will give the default scheme, which is the JWT bearer defaults. So press Control dot to get this from the Microsoft ASP.NET Core Authentication.jwt bearer package. So make sure you have that using statement on the top, and then you can use the authentication scheme that is needed for the JWT authentication. And after that, we will use the add JWT bearer method, to which we can pass some options. So options such that options dot, and we will provide the token validation parameters. So once the token has been created, what parameters do we validate it against? So we will create a new token validation parameters, and this is coming from the Microsoft Identity Model .tokens package. So I can Control X from here and put it as part of the using statement at the top. So once that is there, I can say new token validation parameters, and inside that I will have a few properties. So I will first say validate issuer is equal to true, validate audience is equal to true. So that means I want to validate the issuer and the audience as well. I also want to validate the lifetime, so I will mark that as true. I want to validate the issuer sign-in key, so that is equal to true as well. So make sure the key was the same that the JWT was created against. So I'm checking for the issuer sign-in key as well. I will have the valid issuer list. So valid issuer is equal to builder.configuration, and I will read it from the appsettings.json file, and I want to provide the list of valid issuer and the valid audience. So I will say builder.configuration, and I will use the square brackets. I will say JWT : issuer, and this will read it from the appsettings.json file. Make sure you have the JWT object in the JSON file, which is this, and then I'm reading the issuer, so make sure the name of the issuer matches over here as well. After that, I will also provide the valid audience is equal to builder.configuration, and similarly I'll say JWT audience, and make sure the spellings of the audience matches over here as well. Finally, I want to say the issuer sign-in key parameter. So issuer sign-in key will be a new symmetric security key, and to this I will give the encoded version of the key. So encoding, I will use the encoding dot, let me bring that, so encoding control dot, to use this from system.text. So encoding dot utf8 dot get bytes from builder dot configuration, and we will read the key again. So this one, the key this time, so key will be coming from, and I can minimize this over here, JWT : key, and I can then put a semicolon at the end to close the statement. So I'll put this in the second line, and this way we are creating the, adding authentication to our services, and also adding the JWT bearer token along with the parameters that we want the token to be validated against. So all of that we have given in the program.cs file, and there's one final thing left in here, which is to add authentication into the middleware pipeline. So if you look at the bottom of the program.cs file, we have app.useAuthorization, but before authorization can happen, we want to authenticate the user. So above this line, I will say app.useAuthentication, now that we have provided the authentication scheme as well. So with that, we have made our settings for the authentication, and in the next lecture we'll come back to test this and see what happens.